Okay. I think we can call the Wednesday, March 4th, 2026 meeting of the Falls Church City Planning Commission to order. Mr. Trainer, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Polinsky?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Chair Comont?
I'm here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Kravinsky?
Here.
All right, and Mr. Krasner and Ms. Friedlander are absent.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Mr. Krasner, so hopefully he'll join us tonight. Ms. Friedlander will not be joining us. Okay, any changes to the agenda? And if not, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no speaker series tonight. Mr. Trainer, do we have any petitions this evening?
Only for public hearing items.
Okay. Okay. Great. And no written correspondence this
Correct.
evening? Okay. So that brings us to our action items. The first action item is 6A, the CIP public hearing. Would you like to introduce the item, or we just go right to Ms. Sopsey?
I think we can go right to Ms. Sopsey.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you. Good evening. Jack, I think if you want to pull up the attachment 2, the PowerPoint. I think I was just going to do a quick, if I can propose to the Planning Commission, I'll do a quick sort of synopsis and summary of the last time I was here, the presentation of the proposed fiscal year 27 to 32 CIP and the staff report tonight. We are back after the last formal presentation of the capital improvements program last meeting tonight for the public hearing and action to formally recommend for the Planning Commission to recommend the CIP as proposed. The request tonight is that. And I think I'm just going to go through like a quick 10-minute summary just for where we are now. If you can go to the third slide, maybe. The proposed 27 to 32 CIP program totals $162 million. That is higher than last year's total, driven largely by new grants that we discussed. The guiding theme this year is sustaining a state of good repair, the emphasis on reinvesting in and maintaining existing infrastructure, facilities, utilities, and transportation systems, and prioritizing life cycle replacement, reliability, and long-term asset management. The CIP reduces reliance on capital reserves this year and debt relative to last year and defers major new facilities. For example, the property yard and public safety headquarters shifting to the 10-year pipeline, pending additional feasibility work and long-range funding strategy. We talked about the 3 priorities, which on the next slide, I think we have, or next one, thank you. Next one, Jack. Thank you. The first priority of infrastructure reinvestment was sort of the core priority and directly reflects the state of good repair theme. Some key actions aligned with this are the systematic traffic signal infrastructure replacement program, of the facility condition assessment in collaboration with the schools to inform future reinvestments in facilities, near-term facility upgrades. If you go to the next, maybe 1 or 2 slides. I wish I had a clicker, sorry. Next one. The facility reinvestment priorities that we talked about shared some near-term facility upgrades at City Hall and Property Yard, continued planning for major long-term needs like public safety headquarters and Property Yard. And we also talked a lot about sewer investments and stormwater and increased regional treatment costs tied to Alex Renew in the sewer program, their generational rehabilitation program. This approach is about addressing deficiencies, extending useful life, and deferring projects that expand or increase our facilities in this fiscal year. The second priority was progressive multimodal transportation, advancing accessibility. If you go to the next slide, maybe. Advancing accessibility and safety consistent with Complete Streets and Vision Zero. Some highlights include the shared use path and some corridor improvement projects, missing links and NTC programs, funding those and leveraging those to advance some safety and accessibility goals, and continued pursuit of state and federal grant funding to support transportation. Which does remain the largest portion of the CIP, supported significantly by grants. It's funded 90% by grants. The third priority is strategic project development. I think that's the next slide. Yeah, there we go. Which represents sort of a shift toward front-end planning and scoping in the capital plan this year. It includes investments in master planning, system-wide stormwater and sewer studies, preliminary engineering and pre-scoping, and dedicated annual project development funding for transportation and stormwater. However, a recent adjustment reduces, and this is not in your staff reports because it just happened this week, we have reduced the stormwater project development funding by $50,000 in fiscal year 2027. This modification is intended to moderate the near-term financial impact and phase investments responsibly, and to help maintain a stormwater rate increase that's more manageable, not to exceed 7% in fiscal year 27. That update, like I said, was not reported in the staff report because it was just like a very recently developing thing that we changed. So, but overall, the impact to the stormwater program is only $50,000 in fiscal year 27 that we're reducing over the entire 6-year total. So we do still have $100,000 a year for stormwater project development in fiscal years 28 through 32. I think that represents less than 1% of the total stormwater program, the 6-year total of which is $8.7 million. So that $50,000 there is still $50,000 remaining in fiscal year 27, and that will still go towards supporting strategic planning and long-range investments, including identifying and applying for new grant sources in stormwater. I think the next slide, 10-year pipeline. We talked about the enhanced 10-year pipeline now has a dedicated section this year with expanded project sheets that outline the project purpose and benefits and the readiness level and other key considerations. Projects enter the pipeline based on infrastructure needs, facility assessments, master plans, and community priorities. The pipeline will serve as a planning framework and as an engagement tool, allowing the Planning Commission and the public to help shape long-range prioritization before projects are shifted into the 6-year plan for funding. In my staff report, I did note that as one of the, I think the only action for follow-up is that staff will follow up with the Planning Commission to schedule a future work session to engage on 10-year pipeline projects and development. We can talk more about what that looks like, but I'm thinking, early on, sort of pre-FY28 CIP development that we engage in that conversation. On the next slide, we talked about funding sources. We can skip to the next one. Unfunded projects and the delay of $10 million into capital reserves and what the impacts of that are. Capital reserve funding we've relied heavily on for the last 5 years to fund CIP projects. And so that is a priority for us in going into the next couple of years, identifying either replacing that $10 million in the capital reserves or identifying other funding sources to advance these priorities that we discussed. The next slide, we talked a lot about sewer and stormwater. I wanted to give you all the update about the reduction of $50,000 in the stormwater project development. I think that's kind of the highlights that I wanted to hit. Overall, the proposed CIP is structured around fiscal constraints and discipline while also prioritizing good stewardship of public infrastructure and facilities aligned with the priorities that I laid out, prioritizing reinvestment over sort of expansion and new projects and priorities, strengthening the 10-year pipeline as a long-range decision framework, and leveraging grant funding, acknowledging that, sustainable sewer and stormwater reinvestment will require rate alignment over time. I think that kind of summarizes what I wanted to talk about with you all tonight in the staff report. I did update the staff report to reflect some of the discussion and the highlights from the last meeting, the action for follow-up on the 10-year pipeline, sort of the general feedback and support that, tried to, synthesize all of that to support your all's motion for tonight. I think in the draft motion that was provided earlier this week. I'm ready for any questions or comments, or when do we open it up for? Okay. Yeah, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Sopsey. Should we open the public hearing at this time? Yes. Appreciate the report and the reminder of the slides again. It's very helpful. So this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open this item to the public. Is there anyone here to speak on this item?
Yep. The first speaker slip we have is by Jeff Peterson.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Peterson. Let's maybe try this one.
Yeah, either one.
Jack, yeah.
Just make sure the mic is on over there.
Do you have a green light?
See green light?
Green light, okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Peterson, 205 Tyson Drive. I chair the Falls Church Climate Action Network. We're a local nonprofit organization working to help Falls Church residents and businesses address climate change. You can find out more about us at our website at fallschurchccan.net. For many years, the city deferred proposals to make investments to better manage energy, to protect the climate, on grounds that we did not have an overall plan and set of priorities to spend funds wisely. Today, we do have a pretty good climate plan for the community and for the government as a whole. But the CIP before you tonight makes only very limited investments to implement the adopted energy plans. This is a serious underinvestment that will doom future efforts to meet the 2030 goals in the plans. We are just simply not putting our money where our mouth is. The Falls Church Climate Action Network urges you to recommend that the City Council amend and strengthen the CIP to better implement the adopted climate and energy plans. Here are just a few recommendations. First, the CIP should fund and accelerate the project to put solar power on the roof of the community center. This project will pay for itself over time. Doing it now means we can get a 30% grant from the federal government and save even more money. Second, we now have dedicated funds in the CIP for costs relating to things like IT upgrades and traffic signals. The CIP should include a new climate and energy fund to support a range of small projects that would help implement the energy plans in diverse ways. Third, the existing fleet replacement element of the CIP should be upgraded to provide a public plan and schedule for city vehicle purchases, including electric vehicles and buses. Finally, there are several critical topics that need to be added to the 10-year pipeline element of the CIP. For example, as the city shifts to, and the community shifts to electric vehicles, the city needs to invest in a public charging network. We need to start that investment soon. And perhaps most importantly, the 10-year pipeline needs to recognize that the best way to make significant progress toward our climate goals is to join with nearby jurisdictions investing in a virtual power purchase agreement for offsite renewable energy generation. Other improvements are needed, but that would be a good start. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson.
Okay, our next speaker is Maya Anderson.
Welcome, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening. Oh, this is working? Okay. Good evening. My name is Maya Anderson, and I'm a student at Meridian High School and a resident of Falls Church, 821 Ridge Place. I'm here tonight because students in the city care deeply about climate and energy issues, and not just as an abstract political issue, but as something that directly affects our future. And students at Meridian are well aware of this fact. We have classes on sustainability and technologies and a very active environmental club. And I'm here tonight to represent the Falls Church Climate Action Network. I work with Ms. Peterson as well. I'm the student representative. And I'm here to talk about the capital improvement plan and why we should prioritize these issues in the long-term investments, because essentially the capital improvement plan is a long-term investment, and climate and energy are long-term realities. The decisions we make in this budget will shape our city for decades, and I want to make sure that it's a good one. Firstly, I want to speak about solar. The community building solar project is a strong step, but clarity and urgency matter in this. If we are investing in solar infrastructure, we should prioritize it sooner rather than later. And moving projects forward, especially when paired with roof replacements like at Mariel and Henderson, is fiscally responsible. Right now, time is running out to commit to solar on the MEH roof because the tax credits are going to expire soon, and this is going to raise the effective cost of the solar by over 40%. So any roof structural improvements needed to support solar panels can qualify for the tax credit, which ultimately lowers capital costs. So installing a solar when the roof is already being replaced is efficient, cost-effective, and forward-thinking. Leaving solar out of these projects feels like a missed opportunity. And I think that the students in our school really care about that, and they understand the importance of implementing sustainable development goals and these plans that are forward-thinking. Secondly, our school facilities planning should explicitly include energy and climate resilience, not just safety and access. Students spend most of our days in these buildings, and energy-efficient schools lower long-term costs, reduce emissions, and models the values our city says it supports. When we expand facility assessments, climate and energy should be a part of that core framework. And third, school buses matter. Whether diesel or electric, buses are a significant investment. If we are serious about long-term financial planning and emission reduction, funding bus replacements through the CIP provides transparency, structure, and the ability to finance responsibly over time. Electric buses, in particular, would directly improve air quality for students. And students are often told that they're the future, but we're also the present. And I'm here to say on behalf of students at Meridian and the FC CAN that this issue matters to us, and if we want to be a city that prioritizes these issues, we need to match that with rhetoric and our actions. So I urge you to prioritize climate and energy investments with the CIP, not as optional add-ons, but as core infrastructure for the community we are building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Any additional speakers?
That's all we have.
Okay. With that, I think we can close the public hearing and move on to discussion amongst the planning commissioners. Any comments? Anyone want to start? Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to start out, where does the school facilities funding that's on the list connect with the things we just heard about in terms of climate action projects?
Yeah, I think we've talked, the last time I was here, maybe the last time in November as well, when we talked about the energy action plans, I think that's difficult to sort of capture in the CIP. We have a lot of progress that are happening on the energy action plans, both the government operations and community energy action plans that I think is in our operating budget, so which is separate from the capital plan and budget. We do have some active and ongoing projects in the CIP that are not reflected in this plan because they were funded and appropriated in prior years, like the EV fleet replacement. We got a grant through HUD of $600,000 to purchase electric and hybrid vehicles to replace our City of Falls Church fleet vehicles. That's ongoing right now. We actually received, I think we received 6 of those vehicles already for facilities, staff, and we're working on a PO right now to purchase charging stations and install those at the property yard. And I think perhaps in the back City Hall parking lot as well. So like, I feel like there are things that are happening that are not reflected in this year's proposed CIP. I think, and that's why in the staff report, I didn't mention this earlier, but in the staff report, I did have a couple bullets of, I noted that last meeting, I think request for better communication and integration of those energy action plans and how those are being implemented in light of our goals. Maybe that needs to, I don't know if that accompanies the CIP or if that's a separate sort of item that maybe we need to do an update on in the future. I also noted the request to accelerate the rooftop solar at community center rather than delaying by 1 year until fiscal year 28. We talked a little bit about that last time, that is, we are ready to accelerate that project. That is a funding issue, and that, in light of this year's budget and funding constraints and being in a really tough, fiscal climate and environment this year, that we weren't able to fund that sooner in fiscal year 27. The school facilities, so there were some questions last meeting about the school buses. The school buses are purchased and approved through the school board. So I did confirm that. I didn't note that in the staff report, but I did sort of follow up on that question to get a better understanding. The school has purchased an electric school bus in the last couple of years, also through a grant. And don't quote me on this. I'm not as familiar with the school board's, budget, and but I feel like the fleet manager told me there were plans to approve 2 new propane school buses, so like renewable propane rather than 100% electric vehicles. I don't know very much about renewable propane or the energy and climate benefits of those. But that would be through the school board. So again, not reflected in this proposed CIP budget or plan. I feel like, I don't know if that's a good answer to your question, but I feel like we have a lot of things going on in sort of different shops. And maybe a future action is getting better coordination of all of that information in one place.
Thank you. That's a good start, I think, on the response that I would hope for. Strikes me that this issue is a little bit like, affordable housing, and that it's something we've talked about and it's been here, there, and everywhere, but it took some number of years for it to become sort of part of the regular round of discussions come budget time. And I think we're at that point now on that issue, but I think we do have a ways to go. So what you're basically telling us is what you're asking us to approve tonight in this particular area has some good ideas. Perhaps they could be packaged, explained, prioritized in a way that would make the community feel that we're not just paying lip service, we're actually doing things, number one. And number two, is it in our capacity to ask the schools to allocate their efforts and funding with a special eye on these concerns? I don't know what else is in the school CIP that, I've looked through the book and so forth, but in terms of prioritizing, I don't know if that's as important or equally important or less important than some of the things that we're hearing about here tonight. But before this gets to the council, I think it would be helpful for some combination of all that to be explained and alternatives to be explored wherever there's money, on the city side for sure, and on the school side as well.
Right. And I think the draft motion that is provided here, it does, recommend additional resources for, master bike plans and energy plans and acceleration of the solar rooftop systems. So I think that's a good starting place. It is something that can be explored once, once budget is presented to council and we start getting into like budget markup. That is a priority that we can look into. It is similar to affordable housing as well, because like affordable housing, it's separate from the CIP. So I don't always feel like
Right.
I want to speak on it because I'm not an energy expert and it's not really in this scope. It sort of overlaps at places and I can speak to those, but it is sort of sometimes an awkward thing to address. I am in support of the recommendation to explore those alternative, options. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think if we just, I mean, at least for my dime, if we communicate that a little more forcefully, that would be a good start. I know the budget process is underway, but we still have some weeks or months to go, and hopefully maybe the economic climate improves as it has in some past years towards the end of the budget cycle and money becomes available that in January or February did not appear to be available. And if so, I'd certainly recommend that some of the things talked about here tonight would be included in planning for out years, certainly, or immediate if possible. And I'll defer to others. The question of buses interests me. There was an article, I think, in the Post recently about, was it Montgomery County that had a flap over their electric bus fleet? Anyway, when I read it, I thought I'm going to ask Tim about that and see what we should be doing because other jurisdictions are having some issues. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stevens, do you want to? Or
I think I'll defer to my colleagues.
Okay.
Maybe I'll come back.
No further questions or comments. Good job to Mrs. Sobsi and team.
One quick question. Do you happen to know, and I don't know if you know this, but based on some of the conversation from the speakers tonight, do you know if the federal tax credit is still available for solar on roofs? Because I believe in the new legislation, it canceled it after 2025, that it's
They
not
did
actually available.
for residents.
It's
but,
residents.
Yeah, this is for commercial and schools, public buildings are considered.
It's still, that's
commercial.
still open?
Yeah, so we get till the end of next year.
Till the end of end of 27?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's
I think
installed
that's
and operating?
That's for PPA and leases, correct? Because we did have that, we did meet the December 31st, 2025 deadline for the solar for Aurora House.
Right.
I knew that was a deadline for Aurora House.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that if the community center rooftop solar is not a PPA or a lease, that it would not qualify for the 30% tax credit. But again, I'm not an expert on this, but I think the MEH would, because it would be purchased, it was a PPA, proposed as a PPA. The cost of the roof replacement at MEH, the cost of the solar rooftop at MEH in the CIP was always to replace the roof. That $950,000 that was in there was to replace the roof in order to support solar. The problem was that that roof wasn't really that old. So from a sort of fiscal perspective, it was like, do we replace a not really old enough roof for $950,000 in order to execute a PPA to get solar? Does that make sense financially? And yeah, so that's been sort of the issue with the MEH rooftop solar.
And I think the one thing, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And one thing I don't think I know is do we have any idea what the payback period is on solar? Like at what point it becomes cost effective to have installed it?
I don't know those off the top of my head. So I think they're different for each building, and I don't want to say something wrong. So
Well, you also
unless
would wanna-
Mr. Stevens knows.
No, it does vary, and of course, it's not as good as it used to be because of the the difficulty with credits. But it will still pay for itself. It just takes longer, but that's the beauty of a public situation. We have time. That works in our favor. So maybe it takes 20 years instead of 15 years, but it's still going to come back as reductions in our budget for energy.
Yes.
And there's the financial considerations, but there's also our energy goal considerations, and
Yeah.
that moves us in the right direction on that.
And the demonstration that, for the rest of the community, that this is,
A community
good thing to
value
do.
for the
Yeah.
community.
I think Mr. Duncan wanted to chime in on one thing. Nope, you're good. All right.
You're good? Okay, I could make a few comments and if you'd like to close us out. or-
Well, for right now, I don't have any anything new to say beyond what I've said in our work sessions, which is basically that overall the plan is very good. The quality of this year, I think, strikes me as higher than some of the previous CIPs that I've gone through. Problem I have is basically inconsistent with the speakers that we heard tonight. It's basically that we're not doing enough to implement our energy plans, and as a consequence, it makes it much more difficult to achieve our goals. So, that's a big concern that I have. And, I've always supported the CIPs in the past for all 8 years that I've been on the commission. But at this point, I'm kind of having a lot of trouble seeing that that's the right thing to do for this year.
Understandable, Mr. Stevens. And I'd say for my part, I mean, I agree with Mr. Stevens that, like, it's clear that there's been a lot of thought in this. I really appreciate, like, the strategic focus that you've been bringing to the CIP. And the state of good repair theme, I think, is an important one. We've been underinvesting in our public infrastructure, I think, in a lot of various ways. And so I think there's a lot of catch up that we're having to do. And that puts us in a tough spot in terms of the funding that we have available for other priorities. So yeah, it's a hard time. I do think that the commission would be very interested in having you come back to discuss those 10-year pipeline projects and how we might prioritize and triage those projects. I think the motion that we had drafted, we might want to think about amending. And I guess at this point, is anybody ready to make the draft motion, and then maybe we can discuss it for discussion? It's actually quite brief. Yeah, unless there's any other discussion on this. Ms. Opsy, your suggestion of also providing an update on the community energy action plans would be, and the government energy action plans, and maybe that's a request for staff.
Maybe, yeah. And I'm not sure if maybe that would align with like the council's strategic priorities, or maybe that's something that staff, maybe Kurt and I brainstorm on something. I'm not really sure what that looks like. I think it's clear that like we need to, again, improve communication and integration of that information like somewhere here, because there is a lot of overlap with the CIP.
Definitely.
CIP is a very good opportunity to talk about those issues.
And I think some of it is the sequencing, like the timing,
Yes.
because by the time we see you at work session, we have a
few
couple, a week.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the one discussion, and then we're here at public hearing, so.
Oh, you mean the sequencing between the two meetings at Planning Commission, yeah.
I mean, if we want to have a 10-year pipeline discussion, when is that
Right.
occurring? If we're
Yeah.
talking about these energy action plans, when do we want to have those discussions
Right.
so that they can really influence the CIP that is
Right.
developed and brought to us at work session?
Yeah.
Definitely like to plus one that thought. Like, if there's a way to have a conversation about it. Sorry, I'd like to plus one that thought. If there's a way to have a conversation, like an ideation type conversation outside of the advanced level discussion about what's past the CIP in the 10-year plan, like the chair was saying, I think that would be a really useful, non-presenting kind of presentation, more of an open discussion, I think would be really useful.
Okay. We can talk about what that looks like. I think I am fine with coming quarterly for the CIP updates that we provide to council. I'm happy to do that. We have, usually in November, we have the CIP development kickoff with Planning Commission. I think for 10-year pipeline, I was thinking something sooner than November, like in the summer, pending sort of our staff work plan and how much we get done, that we have to provide.
Yeah,
on that.
and to be cognizant of the fact that you have been here a lot and it's late, and I don't want to
Yeah.
just make you keep coming to these things. I think it would be a useful time, sometime in the spring or summer, to have
Yeah.
a discussion about what comes next after the CIP.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always appreciate having you and all of your expansive knowledge of the CIP, Caitlin. It's
Thank you.
terrific. Okay. Any further comments or discussion?
Sorry, is the discussion on the draft motion, or?
I think we
would
need
you
somebody
read-
to make the motion, and then we can discuss,
Then we can discuss it.
and second the motion, and then we can discuss any changes that we might want to make after the discussion tonight. Mr. Kravinsky, do you want to make the motion? Are you volunteering? It's not very long.
That's the reason I'm volunteering. Next one will be long, I won't do it. Draft motion, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve pursuant to Section 6.19 of the City Charter and Section 17.08 of the City Code, the FY 2027 to 2032 Capital Improvement Program as presented on February 18th and March 4th, 2026, as summarized in the SIP budget pages 2.1, 2-2, 2-3, 2-4, 2-5, and 2-6, based on the following justifications. The SIP is consistent with the comprehensive plan, small area plans, and elements of the master plans. The SIP provides both investment in new and reinvestment in existing facilities and infrastructure. The SIP attempts to balance the city's many needs with limited available resources, both financial and staff. The SIP complies with the adopted financial policies, and the SIP makes good use of grant funding. Furthermore, the Planning Commission recommends additional resources be made available for implementation of the master bike plans and energy plans, acceleration of plans to install solar energy systems on Mary Ellen Henderson and the community center could help implement the city's energy plans, and if implemented by the end of 2027, qualify those projects for a 30% tax credit.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Sorry, did we discuss it first before we second it, or did we then discuss?
I think you second it, and then the motion is on the table, and then we can discuss any changes. Is that correct? Okay,
For the purposes of getting to the discussion part, I will second the motion.
okay, thank you. All right, any discussion on the motion?
I think my thoughts here are that if we are going to recommend additions, we should also recommend where we would make trade-offs if we are going to ask for this. Like I am in favor of adding this information about the bike plan and the energy plan, but I think we have to also participate in making some of the hard choices of what would come off if we want to add these in. So yes, I would love if, like Mr. Duncan was saying, there were additional funds that were available that we could have, like if the economic situation turns around or there's a change in the next couple of months, that we have that opportunity. But I think it is, in order to pass this to City Council, we also have to say what we think would be deprioritized from this particular conversation.
I worry that might be a little detailed. I'm not really prepared to make that.
I know.
I don't know that there's one project. I mean, if you think about that chart that Ms. Sobsey shared, how we address the 800,000 shortfall, the anticipated 10 million shortfall, right? Like you pulled money back from a variety of different projects over the next 7 years, and that may be sort of what the end result would be if we were to want to. So I think I'm comfortable with recommending that the City Council prioritize these projects and they can figure out the best way to do it. I hear you on the instinct to want to help with how to do that, but there's no obvious choices for me or one big thing.
There's a little bit of good news from what I understand. The second quarter from the fiscal year came in reasonably good. Hotel taxes were down, but other retail taxes were up. But I agree. I mean, it's kind of tough for us. And there's a whole lot of moving targets, and it's very difficult for us to.
Right. I mean, I agree, but I think the challenge I'm seeing in this is that if we make the motion as written, recommends additional resources, like if those resources don't exist, are we saying this is below the line? I think that's what I would want to make sure that we are communicating.
Yeah.
That sucks, right? Like as a conversation, I understand that, but I think there is an important conversation to recommend to the City Council and say, this is money. If there is money, we should do this, as opposed to we should do this even if there's not money, and then we should have a trade-off conversation.
I have to agree with Mr. Polinsky there. One option, and I agree that there's a lot of detail that we wouldn't be able to get into, and we might end up recommending killing something that's very important, but we might want to add that something to the effect of recommends additional resources be made available and urges staff to submit, I don't know, but if we call it lower priority projects or projects that could be considered as offsets. Because I agree, it's not our job to just say spend more money. There was a certain budget, and if we're going to add something, we should ask staff to assess the priorities of the existing projects and offer up suggested deletions or delays or reschedulings.
Thoughts from you, Mr. Duncan, as a former member of council, as to what council might be expecting or, interested in hearing from the planning commission?
Those are good thoughts. I'm just trying to figure out how we can be most useful. So the staff went through a pretty exhaustive process of paring down, right? And that's what we've talked about at our last couple of meetings. What we're basically asking for is a continuation of that attitude for as long as the financial situation looks like it looks today, as we go through the budget process and see where we come out at the end. So is there some way to memorialize that, we have done the first round of work to try to bring aspirations in line with resources, and we encourage continuation of that effort by staff. And in the meantime, as a planning commission, we would suggest prioritization of any available resources to be directed at, and this gets into then the details. How detailed do you want to get? Do you want to say, do you want to pick between the babies of master bike plans and energy plans? From what I'm hearing everybody else talk about up here, the energy plans are, would get the first seat at the table just because they're so overarching and cover both city and school side. And then my last question is, so with this language, we're committing to try to put solar on the roofs at both Mary Ellen Henderson and the community center by the end of calendar 2027. Is that something we're really committing to try to do?
Yeah. Have a lot of thoughts.
What I heard you say was not that.
I'm not, yeah, I would have to get back to you about the tax credit eligibility for community center in any time after December 31st, 2025, because that was my understanding. I think MEH would be different. It would qualify for a tax credit by the end of 2027, calendar year 2027, because it would be purchased through a PPA, I believe. I would have to verify that. One of the complexities about, and as someone who is very familiar with that process that staff went through, I can attest, I did feel exhausted by it. No, I'm just kidding. It's complex. There's a lot of complexities, especially when you talk about operating budget. If revenues are coming in better, there's a more positive forecast for operating budget, that doesn't necessarily translate into more funding for CIP. Mm-hmm. To get more, that money's sort of spoken for in operating. To get more into CIP, then, we start getting into even more complex conversations about how to do that. Then within the CIP, when we reprioritize things, if we're talking about moving things from one fund to another. So solar is in the general fund. It's funded with, it was proposed to be funded with capital reserve. We cut capital reserves, so we had to shift that to unfunded. Bike plans, for example, if you wanted to shift that priority, because the Bike Master Plan project is funded, that's funded with 30% money in the transportation fund that is not eligible to use for solar rooftop. So then we get into sort of, it's a puzzle. It's a crazy, Rubik's Cube of funding sources and programs and eligibility. And I do think that you can, if I may,
Please.
For the motion, I do think that you can be more specific and provide more details for exactly what you are recommending. So if you want to recommend that the community center rooftop solar project specifically be accelerated and funded in fiscal year 27, or if you're okay with it being funded in fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 28, whatever that is, then I would call that out specifically and ask. I think it's okay to ask council to make the hard decisions, and ask them to consider. I was going to make a joke about they get paid the big bucks, but I think that's okay to ask them to do that. They have, budget is being presented March 23rd. They have until May 11th. They have, almost 2 months of budget work sessions and budget markup. That's certainly a lot more than 2 weeks that you all have to do that. So I think that's okay to say, but I would call it out very specifically in the motion what you are requesting or recommending. Yeah.
Thank you for the counsel.
Does that
Ms.
make
Opsey.
sense?
It's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, the thing about the Energy Action Plan items that we've heard about tonight and that you've wrestled with at staff level is, it's everywhere in general, but needs to be somewhere in particular to give us a feeling that, yeah, we really care about that. I mean, it's a $160 million CIP program over 6 years. It's roughly equivalent to the $120 million that we spent on the high school, which took at least 6 years. And I think there are those in the community and on this board who would like the same sort of civic attention that we dedicated to the high school, which was very important, worthy, and I supported it. That sort of same intensity and effort dedicated to the Energy Action Plan generally, but some things in particular. So I don't have any golden words. You guys are better at editing on the screen than Jack is good at that. But I think that's a good suggestion to try to be a little more specific if we can, and worry less. I would worry less about whether we've got the money to do it today on this day of early March. A lot's going to happen between now and when the budget gets passed in 6-8 weeks from now.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it's council's decision as to whether we have money to do these things.
Right.
So I kind of view our role as trying to give one element of input from the community on what we think is important. But it would be nice if we could do that and also tie up all the financial issues, but it just seems to be stretching it a bit.
I would agree with Mr. Stevens. I mean, I'm comfortable with the motion as written. I think if there's a way that we can especially call out MEH, maybe there's some wording changes that we could make there, or we could just talk to our council colleagues and let them know, or they can watch the meeting and hear about the. So your understanding, Mr. Stevens, is the community center would also be eligible for.
Yeah, now there obviously
2027.
there are ways that you have to kind of come up with the financing to meet the requirements of the tax code, which I'm certainly not going to hold myself out as an expert in that. But people that I talk to that do dwell in these matters seem to think that we would be able to do that. Now, the other part of that is that whereas with the Aurora House, we ran into problems with the roof not actually being ready for a solar system, and it required some additional effort to make it so. In the case of the community center, and this is even mentioned in the text of the CIP, it is ready to accept a system. So, it seems like if this is really an important issue for the city, we would move ahead with something where we are able to put it on right now. So.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you feel like the language here in the motion captures that?
Yeah, although I may not be the best person to ask because I'm not sure I'm going to vote for the CIP.
That's okay.
So
That's okay.
maybe one of my colleagues would be who intend to vote for it would be in a better position to recommend some language.
I think starting on line 33 of the staff report, those bullets that I provided of the discussion we had, there is some language about the request that my sort of, interpretation of the last meeting was, I heard a request to accelerate rooftop solar implementation at the community center rather than delaying it by 1 year, considering the project's readiness and staff capacity and to align that with current rooftop solar installation at Aurora House. That's something that you could maybe use language from if you wanted to, like I said, if you wanted to call out specific details in the recommendation. I did not provide anything on MEH specifically, I don't think.
What do you think, Madam Chair?
I know, it's like my least favorite thing, editing live by committee. Do you have a wording suggestion, Mr. Kravinsky?
Potentially, just to throw this out there, and again, I'm inclined that if we're going to recommend, we also need to recommend potential offsets. And I understand we have to be careful about an offset that's going to, be pretty more disruptive. We don't have the time or the expertise to evaluate that here. Tonight.
As a suggestion, could we consider, so I'm agreeing with you, and I'm wondering if there's a way we can say, in the way that we word this, that we recommend, it sounds like in terms of the benefit of the biggest benefit we would get is the 30% tax credit for going with, I think MEH is the one that is most likely, in addition to the roughly $1 million that we'd have to spend on the repairing the roof to support the solar. And if we said, I think if we said, what do you think about, I guess my question would be for you, what do you think about saying, instead of, to I think a very valid point, that we're not going to go line by line in a very already well researched and structured CIP, and say, not this one, not that one, say, we recommend accelerating the MEH, the implementation of solar on MEH, and the cost that would come with that, something like with offset somewhere else, and let council figure out where the offset is, let them have that discussion.
To do that, right.
Here's what I was going to suggest.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but actually.
No, that's all right. No, it's a good point. So I think you could say, as an alternative to what it says, is the Planning Commission recommends additional resources be made available for implementation of the master bike plans and energy plans, parens, in particular leveraging the tax credits for MEH solar or whatever particular projects we want to add in there. And then simply say, and recommend staff evaluate the existing program to identify to City Council potential projects that can be delayed or canceled to maintain the top line funding level by fiscal year. And then put it back on Caitlin. Just because you've obviously sliced and diced this by fiscal year, and you have a pretty good sense of where the priorities are. I mean, not everything that is in this program is of the same priority. And we don't know that, but staff probably does know that, and could make some recommendations to City Council.
Yeah, I don't want to dissuade you from your motion at all. I support the prioritization that I think you all are. I think the spirit of the motion. I also don't want to give the impression that it would be real. $950,000 in fiscal year 27. I don't know that it's realistic, that we have the things that we can reprioritize or defer, or I don't know. I don't want to say, again, that's an exercise that we can't really go through tonight, right here, right now. I would have to go get my laptop and get my spreadsheets. But I think you all should make the motion that feels right for the Planning Commission. And I think that's.
Yeah,
Well, if you don't think you could come up with 900,000,
I just wanted to be transparent about that, though. I didn't want to get.
I understand, but
Yeah.
maybe we don't say make a recommendation to maintain the top line, but make a recommendation to
within the funding constraints that we are working within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there may have to be an increase to the top line, but you may be able to mitigate that to some degree with some offsets.
Yeah. You know,
I
you never
think
know.
it's good to remember too, I think one of the things that we are trying, these motions are, this is a recommendation to council. And one of the things that we're trying to do is just signal to council the things that we, as planning commissioners representing the community, think are important to the community. So this is not sort of like a binding contract that council is signing, or that we're sending to them. And so I'd prefer to keep it a little bit broader in spirit, and I'm comfortable with this language. I don't think council's going to read this and say, oh my gosh, how are we going to balance the CIP? So I'm not concerned about that part of it personally. I think that's a discussion for council. I think what we're trying to do is signal that we really think these energy plans, it's really important that we're investing as a community and bringing these energy plans to life, and also the bike plans, because those also help us meet our energy and climate goals. So I'd prefer to keep the language a little bit broader like this. I think Mr. Duncan had a term earlier. He said, maybe we could, if it makes people feel better, change out the word additional in that first sentence for any available resources instead of additional resources. I don't know, does that make it feel differently, land differently for people?
No. I get the point. I get the point of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think the thing I would say is do we think this is important enough that we're going to ask council to trade something off? And if we don't, I think this is what Mr. Stevens has been getting at. Like, this is not above the line. Like, do we consider this above the line or not above the line?
I think for Mr. Stevens, this is above the line.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like we are.
I'm not even getting that specific. I'm just
Okay.
saying, this is an area that I think is important. We adopted these energy plans, and
We
this
need to-
CIP does very little to implement it. And as a result, we're not going to make our goals. So I'm
Yeah.
really just highlighting that issue. And fundamentally, it will be city council who decides, what's the right mix of issues that get funded and that we proceed work on.
So maybe actually it's sort of grounding that first sentence in the larger goal, Mr. Stevens. So maybe it's, furthermore, the Planning Commission recommends additional resources be made available for implementation of the master bike plans and energy plans in order to meet our community energy goals, our goals for reduction in greenhouse gases. I don't know exactly how the wording is there, but reminding council that these two things are critical to our ability to meet these objectives that we've set for ourselves in these plans.
Yeah, well, that's certainly consistent with the spirit of that first sentence.
I think,
Yeah.
I could go with that wording. I think if city council wants to increase the resources for the bike plan and the energy plan, and they're against a brick wall in terms of funding, they will do exactly what I had suggested, which is they're going to turn back to staff and say, where are the offsets? So we don't have to say that out loud in our resolution, but I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. They're not just going to add money to the SIP budget.
I mean,
No.
they could raise taxes to do it, but like that isn't an option.
I'd have to kill you if we did.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Duncan?
What was my comment?
those are the
good thoughts. I
complexities,
think
Ms. Malinsky, that I'm talking about. Is
I think
yeah.
Mr. Kravinsky and I are on the same general wavelength. I mean, what do I want to achieve with my precious vote on the Planning Commission in this particular instance? Here's what I want to achieve. I want publicity to rumble out from this lengthier than expected discussion, which says, wow, boy, that Planning Commission, they are really serious about these energy plans, and we're going to have to do something about that. And now is a good time to send that message because it's still, again, very early in the budget process. Many things will happen. Money will become available. Money will disappear. It'll come up in places you least expected it. And if council is facing a room full of students from Meridian High School arguing for the future, and Mr. Peterson gives all his eloquent remarks, then it's their job to hear that and weigh it against all the other needs and wants. Our job is a little different. I think our job is to try to look down the road and say, in an ideal Falls Church 10 years from now, where would we be? Well, if we want to get there, we're going to have to, the journey of 1,000 miles needs to begin with single steps here and now. And sending that message, I think, with the language that you suggested would be useful.
That's helpful. Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, I would just add, I've always seen sort of the motion that Planning Commission makes as a recommendation and a request. The recommendation being, the motion that you all are making, that the CIP, as summarized, it meets all of these things, the 5 things that are listed there, right? It's consistent with the comprehensive plan and financial policies. And then your furthermore is sort of your request that the Planning Commission is making to council. We request that you either identify additional resources or find available resources, whatever that looks like, in the proposed capital budget to accelerate these priorities of that, that's sort of what you're communicating, and in that furthermore part, that's your request. The recommendation you're making is based on, the CIP meets these boxes that it needs to meet. That's sort of what's laid out in the city code. And then the last part is your request.
Yeah, that's how I see
please
it too.
Do this.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure where we are on this. Are there?
That's your job.
Is there? I know. Apparently, is there? We've had a lot of discussion on the motion. Is there a specific change that somebody would like to make to the motion, or are we ready to vote on the motion as it is?
I thought we had all agreed that at a minimum, we would add master bike plans and energy plans in order to achieve the city's stated goals.
Okay.
Is it?
Sure. So could you help us with that edit?
Yep.
So after plans, the last plans, in order to achieve the city's stated, how do we want to phrase it, Mr. Stevens? Energy
Adopted goals.
Adopted goals.
Oh, I shouldn't be.
Cities adopted goals?
The city's adopted energy goals.
They're just goals. Because that would cover.
Just goals?
Bike plans too.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Any other edits?
Not to suggest changing words, but your bullet point that you shared there further down is a good one too, and certainly that should remain within the staff report. But I like that language change.
So we have an amendment by Mr. Kravinsky.
We have an amendment, yes, so,
We just need a second.
and does the maker of the motion have to then, so we need a second for the amendment?
Yeah, I
Then we'll
second
vote.
the
Okay, so
second the
Mr.
amendment.
Duncan
We're gonna
seconds the
vote on that,
amendment.
right.
And then does the maker of the motion was also Mr. Kravinsky?
Right.
Do you accept your amendment, Mr. Kravinsky?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll vote on the amendment.
This first vote, this is
Well, we
for,
haven't-
on
I think we haven't
the,
voted yet on the motion, right? So can we just do the motion vote?
Right.
If the maker of the motion accepts the amendment, I think we're okay.
Okay. I
Are there any other changes that anybody else would like to make on the motion? If not, I think we can do
Okay,
a roll call vote.
you're right, since we haven't voted on the main motion yet. Okay. Okay, ready for a vote?
This is the vote on the motion, not on the,
It's a vote
not
on
on the
motion.
edit.
Yeah,
Not
on the
edit. Okay.
motion. Unless there's any other discussion.
I don't think so.
Okay. We're ready.
Okay. Mr. Polinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Kravinsky,
Yes.
Chair Comont.
Yes.
Thank you, the motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Sopsey.
I'm confused now about the motion and the amendment. We're done.
I think we're done. I think we're done. Thank you for your patience, for your counsel. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Good discussion.
Good discussion. Yeah. All right. That brings us to our next action item, which is the tree canopy zoning amendments public hearing, our second public hearing tonight. Great. Welcome.
Good evening, Ms. Comont, Planning Commission members. Good to see you tonight. I'm here tonight after the City Council's first reading of the item. Since the first reading, the Urban Forester Commission and as of this morning, the ESC have shown their support for this item. Since I last saw you, there's only been one substantial change, and it's even fairly minor. On line 572, the fee in lieu of, due to hardships, went from $750 to $2,000 based on a comment made by council during the work session. And since then, I worked with the city attorney to figure out a fair cost that balances between encouraging folks not to want to use it, and also to protect small businesses and adaptive reuses so we don't price them out. So other than that, that's the considerable change, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Great. So this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open this item to the public. Is there anybody here to speak on this item tonight? Okay, if seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion? Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, just a quick question. Do you happen to know if there's any legislation brewing in the General Assembly that would also affect trees?
There is, but it would not affect our current code or any proposed code.
Okay.
It's for the conservation of trees, and the city, we use the replacement code.
Okay, good, thank you.
When we just, hi, but thanks for coming back. When we had a conversation about this earlier this year, I think we did, maybe late last year, we had a discussion to understand. We had an ask out, I think, to understand the effective cost difference or the tax revenue changes that we would expect on an average new development based on this new zoning level. Do we know roughly what that would be? Like if we raise the tree canopy to 10% of the zone, what does that change in terms of tax revenue from that particular area?
So I think what makes that calculation and response somewhat difficult is that it almost presumes that you are introducing the requirement once the approval is in place or perhaps the concept design has been presented. I think part of the advantage of having the minimum live in the ordinance is from the very beginning, someone approaches the city about a proposal or an idea, we can begin to work with them at that very early stage to ensure that the building is structured such that perhaps there may not be an actual loss of density, and we creatively solve for meeting both the requirements and maximizing the potential economic benefit from that property. And because there's so many variations of how that works, the creativity that's on the applicant side, our ability to kind of keep maneuvering and responding to their design proposals, I'm not sure if we're ever going to get to a point where we can quantify any kind of fiscal impacts of that. But it's something we can definitely look for in the next year or so, and some of the site plans that might come in and how people are responding to the new regulation. The other part that I'll highlight is, and I forget which page in the staff report this is, but the team has done a really good job of summarizing the last 12 to 16 site plan approvals that we've done in the city, all of which have far exceeded the 10% number. So we are considering a baseline figure, but we actually, with some additional work that's starting to take place for this year, plan to get to a much higher tree canopy figure, and perhaps in those conversations, from a policy perspective, we may get a better sense of what fiscal impacts might be in front of us, and if other trade-offs have to be considered.
Maybe another way to say it is at this relatively low level of tree canopy, it's not necessarily a zero-sum game. That you can build in the trees in your design early on, and I think you're saying maybe wind up with a better project. It's possibility is there.
Certainly a better experience for the community.
Yeah.
And if I may add to that, studies have shown, there is a study, I believe it's included in here, you can charge higher rents with tree-lined streets for the businesses, and people who shop there tend to stay longer and spend more money. So the calculating the apples to apples, I think, as Matt has mentioned, is pretty tough.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I don't know if when we looked at this last time we had Quinn and Yassini and Econize on there. Maybe we did, and I just missed them. But I remember we talked a lot about Madera. The 3% of Madera was the sort of the call out there in terms of like if they moved to 10%, what would be the difference? Was the question. But it sounds like the expectation here is that we are going to increase the number of trees and not lose anybody. Is that the general assessment?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's, you see, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Do
Okay.
you have comments, Mr. Duncan?
Sure, we got to keep beating this horse for a little while longer. In the interest of full disclosure, I talked to Charles about this a little bit before the meeting. So this chart that's up there now, Table 1, drops out the high and low, as I understand it from what Charles told me. So Madera 2, Founders Row 2, does not, Madera, does not show up on some chart that you have that calculates canopy performance. You thought that there was something left off at one of the, did I misunderstand you?
No, we did drop off the high and the lowest tree canopies on here to try to balance the numbers a little bit, because they were both pretty, they were outliers. So we kind of dropped those off to kind of make it more representative of the projects.
Okay, so Madera's listed at number 5 with 3%. And something dropped off that had a bigger number above 26% or 31%, looks like, is the other high. We're not quite sure what that other high is that we dropped off. We think it might be Stratford.
I believe
No.
it was Godfrey's in Enns, Virginia.
Ah, okay. Okay, all right. Interesting. Okay, and the other question I had, maybe this is for Matt more than anything. How do you think that this will affect our negotiations with applicant developers when it comes to maintenance of the trees that we have previously known as street trees, but allowed the developer to include in its application? So you will no longer get credit for the street trees that are like along Ellison Street behind Founders Road 2. There's 8. The developer would not get credit for that, but yet in some instances when we get development applications, we require the developer to maintain those trees and clear them of debris and snow and water them in the summer so they don't die. Is it your experience or your expectation that we'll still be able, or should we even still be able, to require that the developers take care of those trees, or is it preferred for the city to take over the maintenance of those trees, the street trees that the developer is not going to get credit for planting?
I can start if others want to chime in, but I view it as something where they're not mutually exclusive. So I think simply because one's not receiving credit for a street tree, should not preclude them from providing maintenance for that tree. So I think some of it is just the cost of doing business. And I think if we're dealing with the private property piece of the equation rather than our right-of-way, I think the maintenance should fall on the property owner. I think the crediting or calculation of the requirement that we are updating should be a whole separate and kind of decoupled conversation.
Okay. All right, well, I hope so. I mean, that would be the ideal world. So for Madera on number 5, the 3% number on side tree canopy excluding street trees. So the canopy number including street trees is something more like 9%. Is that right? Is that how I'm reading the chart? Combined tree canopy total?
Yes.
Okay, so when those 8 trees that are planted along Ellison Street reach their, what are we aiming for, 20-year? Is that when we grade them to be fully leafed out?
According to state code, we need to charge the 20-year canopy coverage calculation.
Okay, so after 20 years, those 8 trees will have reached their limit or their capacity. And at that point, that 9% number will look like a leafier environment than you see there before the area was developed, where there was some scrub. They were not really trees, but they were scrub bushes and so forth. So if you can just stick around for 20 years, it'll look great. Anybody who thinks it's a little thin on trees right now, just keep in mind that we do have 8 street trees, and in 20 years, they will hopefully restore or improve upon what was there before Madera was built. Okay, just wanted that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Mr. Stevens?
Oh, I'm good.
Did you already go? No. Mr. Kravinsky?
Thanks. And apologize, because I was not at the last meeting when this was discussed, so hopefully I won't go over the same ground again. Just confirming, the 10% number is the equivalent to, is applicable to the last column on the chart up there, is that correct? So when we say 10%, that's the combined tree canopy total for our project.
No, the proposed amendment would only count the trees on the property, within the property lines of the subject site plan.
So it'd be the
So
second
what
column, I
Would
think.
that be?
The first the on-site.
I think it's the one with the 25% bonus.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The second column? Is that
the
what-
second column,
The
yeah,
second
with the
column.
bonus.
So that all sounds good. The 10% seems rational and actually somewhat conservative based on Arlington and Alexandria and Fairfax County, if I'm reading that correctly. But then you say on line 247 in the summary that you want to revisit this, is that correct?
Yeah, Matt and I are going to work together with planning staff to create guidance documents based on these. So this is just kind of a starting point for minimums that were allowed by state code. So with these minimums in place, we'll be able to create other guidance documents that interact with this code.
So are you anticipating a code that would have a higher minimum?
No,
No,
we're not.
so this is the code, you're not going to revisit the code.
That's correct.
You're just going to create guidance documents based on this code of 10%.
That's correct.
I see. Okay. I was just, it was a little confusing the way it was worded, is that this was, somehow you were going to relook at this and then raise. But I'm a little confused. If the code says the minimum is 10%, how do you create a guidance document that says they have to do more?
Can you take that, Mr. Matusik, or?
Sure.
Yeah.
So first, the reason that answer is valid is because the state prevents us from requiring, I'm going to put air quotes around requiring, more than 10%. So that's as high as we can push the ordinance itself, which is why I think we've landed on this recommendation, is because we're limited to going any further than that. What we've proven with past negotiations and Charles's help and Cameron and everybody else is that we can effectively achieve much more than 10%. And in fact, if we are effectively leveraging our policy documents to do that, who knows how high we can go and still have feasible building proposals in front of us. So to help us with that, knowing that we've pushed the envelope as much as we can with the ordinance, our next target to set a higher tree canopy goal, or what I would say expectation with developers, is to look at guidelines, standards, master plans, and those type of policy documents to set our new expectation for tree canopy and let that be the starting negotiation with developers when they come in to redevelop properties. And then we'll see where we end up, but it's going to be between this minimum, because now you can't go any lower than 10%, and we'll see how close to the target, the expectation we can get. And the expectation could be anything from 15, 20 to even 30%, depending on the site perhaps, but that analysis is still ahead of us.
But if the code says 10% minimum, then everything above 10% is voluntary, or are you planning to provide other exceptions such as to height and things like that to get a higher tree canopy?
It would be voluntary.
It would be voluntary. Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay. That's the only question I had.
Thank you, Mr. Krasinski. Mr. Stevens?
I can put the motion forth whenever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a couple
Oh,
questions.
yeah, sure.
Everybody else went. So you noted in the staff report that the tree canopy coverage number was a little hard to pin down. This is line 186, Jack, table 2. I'm just curious, like, which of these 3 or 4 kind of measurements do you think is maybe, when will we know? I mean, I'm interested in tracking the city's tree canopy coverage over time, obviously, to understand how we're changing, and it seems like it's a little unsettled right now as to what the best way to do that is. So do you have a front runner?
It's been confused for decades.
Yeah. Is there one that we can commit to, or like what's the plan for tracking this so we're not kind of looking at different data sets over time and sort of, ping-ponging back and forth as to whether or not we're meeting our goals?
That's a great question, and it's an initiative I've been chasing to get an accurate tree canopy calculation for the city. Currently, I'm working with the Council of Governments Tree Canopy Subcommittee through CIPSE. We're discussing ways to maybe do just a region-wide tree canopy survey instead of, Arlington's doing theirs, Fairfax is doing theirs. We're not doing any because we don't have the funds for it. So there's been speak of maybe suggesting that we do just a regional tree canopy cover assessment for the whole region. How that's funded is still in the works. And so that would provide us real data. I'm exploring with our GIS person to maybe reach out to either Arlington or Fairfax and see if there's data that we can just purchase from their vendor. Because, obviously they're flying probably right over us to come turn around, so they may have that data. So that's in process. But if I had to commit to a number, I would say right around 42% tree canopy coverage would be, I think, a rational.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say the COG model, I think, is good. They do all of the greenhouse gas emission studies for all 24 jurisdictions. And that was a great relief. The city used to do our own, and it was very laborious. And so having COG take it over, not only does it offload, resource effort, but you get a consistent set of measurements throughout the region.
Absolutely.
And then, this maybe just think of our special exception criteria. Like, are those the kinds of policy documents that we might consider amending in the future to sort of strengthen our interest, or so that developers understand that this is something that we're particularly interested in? I know there's a lot of competition to get into those primary criteria, but are those the kinds of discussions that you envision the community having in the future, Mr. Matusik?
They are. I think what we're also kind of brainstorming is, in addition to tree canopy, there are other kind of streetscape elements, biophilic design, and other ways to achieve very related goals. Part of what we hope to kind of ascertain is kind of working with a very broad stakeholder group of participants, not just kind of members, representatives of boards and commissions, but really the development community, folks that kind of deal with this, have to comply with regulations, building code, best practices, and have a much better sense of realistically what pencils out on projects, what is working in other sites, other jurisdictions. So I think throughout the course of the year, as we head into those conversations, we'll get a better sense of what might be in play for Falls Church.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what you learned. And it sounds like, based on the letter that we received in today's package, that the ESC would also be happy to help support that effort. They sent us a very nice letter on their intention to research green building standards going forward. And I agree that as a community, like, this is definitely something that we need to be more proactive about addressing. Yeah, Mr. Duncan.
Just ask a quick, it may sound a little silly, but if I want to stand up on my soapbox and say that we're going to recover for the canopy loss that we've experienced of let's just say 1%, because that's sort of in the vicinity of the Chesapeake Bay COG numbers and the others, how many actual trees are we talking about in the city of Falls Church?
I can't speak on every tree, but I know public trees. We have about 12,000 trees that the city staff maintains.
Okay, so let's just say that we're going to use only public trees to restore us from the 1% canopy loss. So we're talking 1,500 trees we would need. No, that's not right. How many are we talking?
Are you talking about like 1%?
Yeah, 1% of 12,000 is going to be.
Well, remember that, like, a lot of I don't know what the balance is between public trees and private trees.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that most of our canopy is in our neighborhoods, private property where we have less.
Right, so a calculation based just on public trees would be kind of conservative.
120 trees,
Yeah, I mean,
1%.
is that, if we got the city to rally around Arbor Day this year, saying, this year and forever going forward until we get really exact numbers, which someday hopefully we'll get, we're committing to plant 120 new trees as our stake in the ground, that we're going to recover that 1% that we lost. That would be a reasonable number to aim for. Okay, all right.
I can add that, I think it's possible to come to a number. I don't think we have a firm number for you tonight, but, it would be significant if you consider the entire area of the city in square feet, and then you go back through the tables and see what kind of square footage we get per tree. 1% would be pretty significant, so we don't want to have that lost in this discussion at all, and that's kind of why we're recommending tonight that the 10% kind of gets approved, and then we can continue doing what we can to keep preserving and replacing trees in the city to get as close to replacing that 1% as we can.
As you've no doubt heard the mayor speak often about her interest in metrics for anything that we do, and it strikes me that, it would help if we had a target that we had reasonable assurance was reasonable to aim for year in and year out, just to give people some sense that they can get their hands around this issue and do something about it.
Support the neighborhood tree program. The tree canopy assessment that you mentioned, I mean, obviously it's better if we can hitch our wagon to a broader regional assessment, but this is something that Fairfax and Arlington are doing regularly, I understand. So is that something that we should think about adding to our future CIP recommendations, like a project?
I'm not sure if it would hit the cost threshold for.
It's not 150,000.
Yeah, right. Well, it may be. I haven't gotten a cost estimate yet. I'm kind of working with some others to kind of get that moving. But
Okay.
I don't have any idea what the number would be.
What the number would be.
What our flyover would cost.
Okay, well, maybe we can keep it in mind. If you do get the number, I think we'd be interested in knowing what it is, because it's important. Okay, I think that's it from me. Mr. Stevens, did you want to make the motion?
Yeah, sure. First of all, credit to staff. I like the length and the composition of the motion, so appreciate that very much. I move that the Planning Commission recommends that City Council adopt TO 25-22, amending zoning regulations related to commercial tree canopy minimum requirements in the city of Falls Church.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Mr. Kravinsky, second. Roll call vote, please. Mr. Trainer.
Mr. Polinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Kravinsky,
Yes.
Chair Coma.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out tonight. Both
Thank
of
you.
Much great seeing you.
Thank you.
All right. Brings us to our minutes from the February 18th meeting. Mr. Duncan, did you catch something? Your eagle eye. I didn't see anything in these.
Seems like there was something on line 169-ish, Jack. It was just a little typo. I can't remember what it was now. The number stuck in my mind, but 168 or 169, what did I find there that I haven't invented?
Scroll down a little more, Jack. Oh, updated. It should be update is all it
Yes,
is.
there we go. It's a tense issue.
On line 169.
169. Adopted the Planning Commission as an update to the city's comprehensive plan. And then somewhere, and I don't have the number for that, but there was a reference to greenhouse gases rather than greenhouse gases.
Greenhouse gases.
It's not gases at a house that's blue or yellow or green. There we go. And that's the only thing that I saw. A masterful job, as always, of capturing lengthy and sometimes
Yeah, I hope AI has been helpful to you, Jack.
These are 100% handmade minutes, so.
artisanally
A
minutes.
lot
Jack's
more
recipe.
thorough
Look
in the
into
last
that.
few months.
I think we need to put AI in the budget to get Jack off the hook.
They're very good. I think they're very accurate to our discussions, and they have a lot of detail, which is really helpful for the community. So I appreciate it.
All right, with those two slight additions, corrections, I move approval of the minutes of the meeting as presented.
Second.
Second with Mr. Polinsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Duncan. No work session tonight, so that brings us to our information items. Any commissioner reports?
Just credit to our chair who hung in there very late on Monday to hear all of the council discussions, so we appreciate you doing that.
A lot of meaty items on their agenda that evening.
I would like to hear from Mr. Virginia
Virginia
Village
Village.
timeline stuff,
Okay.
so I'll hold my credits
Great.
for that.
I think, Mr. Matusik, we're ready for you. Director's report. Thank you.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Kravinsky. Go
That's all
ahead.
right. I reached out to Ms. Mester, Cindy Mester, and Jack about the cable franchise agreements. I just wanted to give an update. And rather than, let me just read you what Cindy wrote back. I asked her a couple of questions about timing of the franchise agreements and particularly about our leverage with regard to the dual poles and things like that, which we've been discussing. Anyway, so here's a response. The city is working to extend the existing franchise agreements under current terms for 4 years, and then we will do a full RFP process for longer, sorry, I just lost it. AI has tried to summarize that for me. It just jumped in. And then we will do a longer refined terms. This is an administrative effort under the city's manager's authority. The federal state code requirements for RFPs are complex and longer work plan item. Also, the industry is changing, as we know, and that cable is going to be less used in place of streaming. The RFP process includes community surveys, public hearings, commission input, and council actions by ordinance. So I asked her about the dual poles under the current agreements. Cable maintenance and double pole removal is required, and staff is continuing to coordinate with the cable companies and Dominion to initiate citywide cleanup through their regional work and work order system. And then I asked her about the legislative process, which we said we wanted to pursue. Although included in the city's legislative program, as recommended by the Planning Commission, there is no 2026 General Assembly legislation to mandate undergrounding of existing lines nor a state budget or rate authority to cover the costs of undergrounding, similar to what we do with power lines. So that was her response. So it looks like right now, all they're going to do is extend the existing franchises. We probably won't even see that. It'll probably go directly to the city manager for approval, and then sometime 4 years from now, they will redo the franchise agreements, and that will include public engagement. I would only suggest that since we are all concerned about the dual poles, if there is a requirement in the existing franchise agreements, we need the city manager to really push that as hard as possible. I'm not quite sure what the penalty is. I guess the penalty is you wouldn't get your franchise agreement renewed, but it seems to me like we need the city manager to enforce that requirement of getting rid of those dual poles. So.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Kravinsky, for staying on that issue. Mr. Matusik.
All right. So Monday evening, I know some of you joined us for another update on Virginia Village. Staff has gotten to a practice of returning to the council every 2 or 3 months with some status updates, better understand what's happening behind the scenes, what we're queuing up for the next couple of months. So this week's update allowed us to highlight really kind of the more intense public engagement efforts that we are targeting for March and April, which, as I think we all agree, need to be the first steps in this longer process to reconcile the vision for that property, since it currently lives in several different documents, kind of straddles 2 different small area plans, and doesn't really quite conveniently mash up with the recent objectives of achieving and expanding affordable housing on that property. So what we're doing is kind of looking at a number of different venues, weeknights and weekends, to target as many folks as we can, both those that live near or at the property, plus residents that are elsewhere in the city boundaries, because I think a lot of people may have opinions about this. And through that effort, we hope to really largely verify that previously established guidance, which I think took some time to develop and went through a meaningful process. We believe a large number of that is still valid, and we want to kind of confirm that with the community and make sure that we carry it forward. And if there are any other adjustments and additional, modifications that have to be considered, March and April will be the opportunity to do that. So March is when we would kind of have those interactive engagements and see where the community might be on this. And in April, we would follow back up with, here's what we heard, here's how we think we need to synthesize this. And really at that point have a sense of to what degree, if at all, the 2 small area plans might need to be amended. I think at minimum, the feedback we've collected so far suggests that the guidance, now that we are proceeding in this path, should live in just 1 single small area plan. So there is a likelihood that the downtown guidance might shift to the other area plan, which already includes the majority of Virginia Village. But we would anticipate that once some of those engagements conclude, we would come back here, I believe on April 15th, for kind of a summary recap of what we heard. That would be followed by another council work session. And at that point, which is shown on the slide here, we would be shifting to the next phase of engagement, which is taking us into May and June. And at that point, once we understand what changes may be necessary to the small area plans, we may also better understand if that guidance needs to be better memorialized or documented in the city code. So we're starting to now bleed into setting the groundwork for how would we review any proposals if a developer comes in a phased approach, redevelop portions of this property. So May and June are those opportunities for the more detailed, more technical conversations about here's how we think we can document all the feedback we've heard. So we'll have a lineup of different meetings that we want to attend, getting into initiating resolution, first and second reading, and we believe late June, early July, that process should conclude. The reason we're using this graphic to highlight that is because we're being very efficient with our time this year, being mindful of some of the tax credit deadlines that are approaching in March of 2027. And as we do that, planning and housing staff are going to be working with some economic real estate consultants to help develop a request for proposals that we would want to issue at some point in early May, mid-May, by which point we would probably have a good sense of what the vision updates are. And that 2-month window from May to June would allow folks to react to the RFP. We would have obviously opportunities to meet and answer questions. If the boards and commission process highlights any final tweaks and adjustments, we can always issue an addendum to the RFP, which is quite common. But really, we want to get to a point where late June, we are beginning to receive proposals for the RFP, because what that would do is give us really the month of July and August to establish a selection committee that will then review those applications and work through the end of summer to identify the development team we would like to partner with. And that takes us to a second half of the year, which we'll present in the next couple of weeks. But we just wanted to highlight what to expect over the next 6 months, because there will be getting busier and busier. So what you'll see is this item will be in front of the council again on Monday, the 9th, for the initiating resolution. And that's kind of the typical process where we want to make sure everybody's in agreement that we should proceed and start that engagement, and there's no surprises about why we're doing it. So that was the update Monday evening, and I know we had a lot of clarifying questions about, the schedule and what's included and when. So pretty good highlight video to watch if you haven't been catching up, but a lot of it I think is in our presentation and staff report as well.
Great, thank you, Mr. Matusik. Yeah, I agree. It was a really helpful presentation on Monday. I think we were there, Mr. Polinsky, you didn't attend, right? Yeah, no worries. Do you have any questions?
No questions, because I have not reviewed the materials. It feels unfair to ask questions that are probably solved by reading those, but mostly just interested in the selection committee, like who's on the selection committee, how does that get chosen, and how does that RP process work because of the current disparate ownership structure. Like how would we bring people in? But I'll go take a look at the presentation before, like spending a lot of time talking about that.
I mean, I know some initial thoughts, because I think internally we are discussing it. I think there's some natural, targets for the selection committee, planning commission, housing commission, EDA, council, maybe some staff. So I think we're going to work through that over the next few weeks, but really make sure that by late June, I think everybody that needs to be there is participating. I think we have a kind of specific target schedule for when those folks can reconvene and have conversations. So I think we have some breathing room to develop that, but we'll certainly be looking for representation from the key groups.
Has there been any consideration, and I don't know if this is a thing that even happens, of like having current or former residents of Virginia Village involved in that selection committee?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's something we just need to discuss with leadership and kind of assess what is a meaningful number. We don't want it to be too large, but at the same time, I think we want to make sure a wide range of voices can be heard.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we had a selection committee on the high school and to select the vendor for that, and it worked, I thought, very successfully and, very positive outcome. So hopefully this will follow in the same footsteps.
Great. Mr. Duncan?
Just wanted to thank Matt for a masterful job in laying out what's a very complex and involved process in a way that made it seem manageable, doable. Applaud everybody's commitment to keep working on this through the summer. Don't get anything accomplished unless we work 12 months a year here. And it's good that I think the meetings of various groups involved are going to continue, and work will not take a big 90-day pause after Memorial Day. Just a request that our meeting schedule, Planning Commission, gets plugged into wherever our name popped up on his tentative calendar, so that we know, to be prepared for whatever chance, to take whatever opportunity we can get to influence the process early on, and by being ready for having read all the materials prior to the meetings where the Planning Commission is supposed to be heard from. But thank you very much for all the work.
And I have to pass the kudos over to a number of staff. We're kind of using this opportunity to really bring planning and housing into the fold, and I think you're going to see a lot of common faces and subsequent meetings as we provide updates, kind of what we heard. Jack's been playing a pretty critical role in a lot of the staff report and presentation, so you'll see a lot of familiar faces as we go forward.
Always happy
Yeah,
to see
thanks
it.
for adding that. Sorry, Jack did a great job. Dana, Brendan, others who, hopefully we'll get to see a lot of in the coming months, so that we can keep moving on this. I made a wisecrack at the meeting that I was an old man in a hurry when it comes to this issue, but it's not just my particular bias for action, but I pulled up a copy of the News Press, which talked about the urgent need for affordable housing and how we're facing a real dilemma of losing some of the units that we have, and we really need to get to work on this. And I looked at the date, and it was in 2007, 19 years ago. So that's just an indication of how long we have been trying, and I hope that we have finally reached a sort of moment of critical effort that will push this across the finish line in the next foreseeable future.
I think the one thing I'll mention on the schedule, because it's come up since day one, and it's going to keep coming up, but I do suspect as we go through this schedule, you get into spring, you get into early summer, I think there will be less and less anxiety as we're going to continue to prove that this is, in fact, executable. But most importantly, the bigger picture and why I think this is as aggressive as it is because we only control what we control. There's so many other variables that have to happen beyond this year that could just naturally delay this. So I think what we're trying to do is play our part. Even a minor delay, or let me put it this way, even the most aggressive schedule, which is what we're following, still, we're 5 years away from delivering a building. I mean, 2031. Like that's the aggressive schedule. If we pause, if we take our sweet time, if we kind of not be as efficient with our resources, that very quickly balloons to 2033, 4, 5. And, we have existing sites throughout the city that have expiring ADUs. We're being very mindful of that. Cost of living is going up. There's a lot of pressures to really deliver on this as quickly as we can. And I think this council has been very strategic about the purpose behind some of these recent acquisitions. So I think we are in alignment, and we want to make sure we bring everybody along with us. And I think as you'll see, the reason we believe so boldly and why this is achievable is we're not drafting a brand new vision for an entire neighborhood. We are simply revisiting a very well-defined set of guidance for a particular site. That's a very different exercise. And I think we're being mindful of not just erasing all those past efforts, but making sure we can reaffirm them and just keep moving forward with what's already on the books. And I think once people realize that, it kind of changes the mindset of how achievable this is. So I'm hoping that the next 2 months really highlight that. And once we come back in April, we're kind of having a different perspective on it.
It's definitely aggressive, yeah, but I'm glad we're moving quickly on it. It's an urgent need. I have a question about the boundaries. There was some discussion in the meeting about whether do we need to touch both of these small area plans, or could we just do, I mean, I don't know, Jack, if you can pull up the staff report, you can see the boundaries on page 2. So Virginia Village is almost entirely in the South Washington
Right.
small area plan, and there's just a few lots that are city-owned in the downtown. So I think I heard you say, if I understood the exchange correctly with Mr. Bragman, that it would be pretty easy to adjust that boundary to pull everything in Virginia Village into that South Washington. Is that correct?
I think it's a matter of tweaking a handful of maps and removing a couple bullets and pasting them into a different document. So
And it doesn't require any sort of community kind of, we don't have to do anything sort of like formal to adjust the boundaries for these small area plans that have been adopted, with these particular boundaries. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out logistics for how we can only touch one small area plan and not two, unless you think there's value in touching both of them.
So there's a couple answers in that. Legally, we don't have to touch any of them. We don't have to update anything. It's just guidance.
Yeah.
And I think a clever legal approach would probably find a way to navigate within the parameters of these plans and still probably get to a reasonable outcome. I think to really be honest with the community and not surprise anyone, make everyone feel like they've been participating in what I think is a subtle change to the direction for this property. We do want to, proactively revisit those. April and March are really not to get into the weeds of exact changes to those plans, but rather speaking in a language that I think everybody can understand, not just, planning experts, and understand what do we mean when we say setbacks, light and air, transitions, green buffers, kind of getting a really clear understanding for everyone of what we are trying to accomplish, what the intent is. And once we obtain that and everybody is generally in agreement, May and June are going to be the months where we really open up the 2 area plans, potentially the city code, and see, okay, how do we translate what we just heard so that in the future, whether it's staff, community, or applicants want to redevelop this property, they maybe just have one reference document to look at. And then I think by that point, we'll have some answers on what that looks like and to the degree to which we need to update the plans at all.
Okay. So I guess I would just, thinking about how we're sort of talking about this, the communication to the community, that visioning step in the process. Just want to be clear, if you, line 325 on page 11, looking at the public engagement, that community visioning workshop is specifically for Virginia Village. Is that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. One of the things that I believe Jack's presentation Monday night highlighted was that we are not reopening the entire small area plan.
Yeah, it's
There's a lot
targeted.
Right. This
yeah.
is very surgical strike just to one property. And because of that, a very, very small percentage of that area plan actually speaks to that one property. There's a lot of broader regional guidance, citywide guidance, and that allows us to, I think, have a much more manageable process because there's so few things that even are in play for consideration of potential changes.
Yeah, so I guess in the naming here, I'm just thinking it's a little vague. What are we visioning? This community visioning workshop number 1. Can we be clear that it's specifically about visioning for Virginia Village, if that's the case?
Correct.
Just in how we're publicizing it, how we're inviting people, what's next for Virginia Village? Share your thoughts kind of approach. If that's what we're trying to do with these workshops.
It is, and I think we're
And I
going to...
understand that it's broader, there's a sort of a broader area, right, that's implicated. We have to understand how it all fits, but if that's the focus, the area of focus, I just think it helps to include those terms.
Yeah, and I think planning, housing staff are also going to partner with our communications team and not just kind of help with the social media push and website presence, but also kind of using the right words to make sure we're attracting the right stakeholders and everybody understands why they're there.
Yes.
So I think having non-planners in the room is a great filter to make sure, like, do we get it right?
Yeah.
Will anybody be confused? So that's still ahead of us the next couple of weeks.
Quick turnaround, but it's exciting. I'm really happy that we're moving on this, and congratulations to you, the driving force, I think, behind a lot of this, with a lot of really excellent staff helping you. So looking forward to working with you on it. And on that note, our public hearing, so just for the commission, like, we'll have a work session on this April 15th. And then one in April 15th. Of course, everybody should be, feel free to attend all of these public engagement. I think you'll hear a lot of really interesting discussion from the community at these. So I'd encourage you, if you're available, to attend these visioning workshops. But we have April 15th for Planning Commission work session, and then another work session in May, one in June, and then our public hearing would also be in June. That's our kind of engagement schedule so far.
Yeah, and the staff report, I think, strategically avoids specific dates beyond really mid-April. We're being mindful of the budget conversations. Some agendas are pretty fixed. So I think working with the clerk's office, the manager's office, once we get maybe past this month, we'll have a better sense of maybe which dates make more sense. And I think the council schedule and calendar will inform when we can visit this body and have kind of a sequence of meetings that kind of allows us to save as much time as possible, but still give enough, I think, status updates, working our way to the public hearing.
Great.
Do you know if there's any expectation, probably might be too early to know, but for the visioning workshops, if there'll be a virtual option as well for people to join? Primarily in person.
There may be, I think, for the April ones. The March ones, I think we're envisioning to be really hands-on, where I think we want to have a diverse audience to sit at various tables. Part of the strategy is to kind of make sure we separate specific groups. So if a bunch of renters show up and then a bunch of homeowners show up, can we kind of mix them up and make sure they're hearing each other? We'll still finalize the logistics of it, but I think the virtual option for that one might be very challenging if you're not there. I think the April recap that staff might provide might have a better opportunity, but I think it will be a limited chance for full engagement if you're not there for the conversation. So, but that's something we'll keep considering.
Okay. Thank you.
And then each of these small area plans are almost 200 pages, so I assume you're going to be pulling relevant guidance that's relevant to the Virginia Village decision or visioning for the community to bring that into those discussions. In a
Yeah,
way
we
that
already
is
have that. It's just a matter of kind of how best to present it and
Yeah.
provide like a cheat sheet, if you will.
Yeah. It's not everybody's going to read the almost 200 page small area plans.
It may stop them from coming to the meeting.
Yeah. A little bit of homework. All right, anything else on this?
The only thing, first of all, kudos. I think it's a very well thought out process. I was struck by what Ms. Underhill and the mayor also reiterated about community engagement. You're dealing with renters who may not feel as empowered, and potentially it's going to be very challenging to get a good group of people who are really going to be affected. But you got to get them in the room. You got to figure out how to get them in the room. I think the housing staff probably has the best connections with that community, and you really need to leverage them to get those folks in the room. I was a little disappointed when the first engagement was 5 people showed up. There should be more than that, And we gotta figure out how to get them engaged in the process.
Yeah, we're fully utilizing our resources. Our housing staff was able to leave pamphlets for every door in that community. We're going to continue to ensure outreach occurs and kind of have more of an in-person presence at that site. Kind of make sure folks have a chance to, talk with us, have answers to their questions. And I think we're also utilizing the resources with management companies of the rental buildings, the multifamily buildings elsewhere in the city, because I think there's a lot of interest in affordable options from those folks.
All right, anything else on this? No? Any correspondence? Oh, we have the letter, the nice letter from the ESC. Did everybody get a chance to read that?
Yes,
Any thoughts, Mr. Stevens?
I hope it's successful.
I agree. Yeah, I'm really glad that they're taking up that research on their own. Not an easy task.
Yeah.
So, but I think they'll service some useful suggestions that hopefully staff can incorporate. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. All right. With that, I think we're. Oh, yeah, we didn't do the look ahead. We got to get back to our look ahead culture. Yes, March 18th. 258 North Washington Street site plan. What is that? Mr. Matusik.
Yeah, I can take
Oh,
this too.
great,
This
Mr.
is
Trigger.
a T-zone property.
Yes, I
It's
think I
a
remember
historic
this one.
property. Not quite sure what the current tenants are. It's a
Is that the one that says Paris on it?
Yeah.
I believe so.
PRA.
Yeah. So they've recently submitted a site plan that would convert it into not obviously keep preserving the existing historic structure, but adding an addition to it, creating a residential concept.
Yeah, I remember the owner of that property came in during the T-zone public comment period. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that represent our first beyond the townhouses?
On Park Avenue.
Non-Park
property.
Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah. And is that fairly baked? I mean, I'm just trying to plan my schedule a little bit for March. We're pretty sure they're going to be here for us to listen to them on March 18th.
Yeah, so they've submitted. So in order to meet the new
The clock is ticking.
clock, yeah, we had to get them in this meeting versus about a month later in April. It'd be too late then.
Okay.
Any updates to the process we've been using to capture planning commission recommendations to the designated agent? This is the site plan, which we provide recommendations on now, but do not approve.
No updates, but if there are recommendations on any improvements to the process, those are certainly welcome. I think otherwise we'd stay with the kind of template memo we used last time, summarizing the application, land use, and then you and I would work together, Chair, to summarize the Planning Commission's recommendations for the designated agent that we would put into the template in real
I
time.
think that's how we did it the first time, and then the most recent time with Mr. Zhang, wasn't it? We had a motion, like the whole commission. We wrote our recommendations live on the screen and then approved it as a group. And I think I prefer that because then I'm not trying to
Okay.
reflect. So I thought that worked well on that particular. We'll see how it goes on this one.
Okay.
But I'd prefer that if possible.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what worked well from my recollection was there's a natural conversation of kind of clarifying questions, curiosity, some debate with the applicant. And I think at some point in the conversation, we get to a point where maybe more
What are
formal
the-
comments
Yeah.
kind of initiate. So I think with each one, we're going to get a better feel for that transition and kind of signal to staff that, okay, I think it's time to write some things down. And I think everybody's goal is to walk away and not really look back in terms of what was said, have follow-up emails about it. So it's something I think we're kind of gauging project by project. And I think as the year goes on and we have more and more applications, we're going to keep tracking to see how things went. And I'm sure later this year have some type of maybe report out on the first 3, 4, 5 site plans that are following this new protocol.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, we will look forward to that, and I think that's the only thing you're seeing for us on the 18th. Okay.
That's right. We'll update the schedule too with the Virginia Village dates too that are known.
Engagements.
So those can be part of the ongoing kind of reminder in the public record.
Okay.
And we canceled the one that would have been on April 1st because that's spring break and there's a bunch of people out, right?
That's
Did-
correct.
oh, we
Th-
did
There's
cancel
also a
that.
holiday, there was a holiday conflict, I believe, for the April 1st. That's why that was,
Take care of that.
Oh, okay, great.
Not
Yeah, I'll be
included.
out of town that week, so I guess I didn't cancel it on my calendar. What was the other? Oh, April 1st is it's a holiday and,
Right.
and spring break.
yeah. So April 15th is the only scheduled planning commission meeting for April.
Would you mind recirculating our meeting schedule?
Sure.
I'm sure it's in my materials somewhere, but
Sure.
yeah, thank you. Okay, anything else? No? All right, if not, I think we're adjourned.
Thank you very much.